Welcome to Meet the Game Changers. I'm Rev Kev, and this is the space where we introduce you to extraordinary people making a difference in our world. These are the voices and stories that inspire us to dream bigger, to act bolder, and to make lasting change. So let's get started with today's extraordinary guest.
This is Meet the Game Changers with Rev Kev, where we dive into the stories of people transforming our world one bold move at a time.
A student makes a mistake in class, maybe they act out, they get into a fight, or they just have a bad day. And instead of guidance, they're suspended. Instead of support, they're pushed out. One punishment leads to another, and before long, school is no longer a place of learning, it's a pipeline for something far worse. Today's guest is Dr. Robert Spicer, a national leader in restorative justice and the CEO of Restorative Strategies, LLC. For over 25 years, he's trained educators, students, and parents to shift from punishment to real accountability and healing. He has spoken at the White House during the Obama administration, redefined school discipline policies nationwide, and continues to break cycles of harm one conversation at a time. And today, we're diving into aspirational justice and education as the end of the pipeline to prison. Let's welcome my brother, my Morehouse brother, Dr.
The house.
Spicer, to the show. Hey, Rob.
How are you? How are you, Rev Kev?
Man.
Thank you for having me on this incredible platform, and thank you for just being a good brother and good friend for over 30 years.
Ha ha.
God,
Hiding,
oh,
hiding the platinum underneath.
kid,
Morehouse.
right here.
Oh man, it has been decades since
Yes,
we got on this path as
yeah,
student at Morehouse College, our great alma mater.
yes,
And we both were inspired to choose that historically Black college and university um, for our higher education. Why did you choose Morehouse? What made you come to Morehouse? Because it this is where it started for us.
it's an interesting story. So I got on a college tour. I lived at the time in New York, Hempstead, Long Island, and got on this college tour, and we visited a variety of different schools. I liked them. It was cool. It was good to see our people, you know, in education. I was a part of civic organization in Hempstead
Mhm.
called National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. So I was a youth council member. I was state leader. So I was always around our people and
Mhm.
doing a lot of things with African Americans in support of civic engagement. And so going down to the school, I was like, yeah, this is where I want to go. And so we get to Morehouse, and unfortunately, we got there too late for us to get a tour. But there was a football game going on, so we were able to go and see
The team
the
lose.
team, the Maroon Tigers play their game. But they lost.
I know.
What was beautiful, what was beautiful was I was in the band in New York, so I saw the battle of the bands. It blew me away. I've never seen nothing like that before in my life. I
Right.
saw trombones battling other trombones,
Yeah.
trumpets battling other trumpets. There was a gentleman by the name of Fred, and Fred, from the JB. So they kept saying, "Come on, Fred, play the trombone." He'd
Yeah.
get up
Yeah.
there and hit them solos, and then the women, the brothers. It was just such a beautiful environment, and I said, "I have to come here."
Mhm.
Little did I know that this was going to be a place where I was going to meet incredible young men, leaders of all walks of life in their own right, and then to find out that one of the greatest graduates of the school, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, walked these very halls. I was blown away because I looked up to him, having been a part of NAACP, and it was like, oh my gosh, he went here. So, like I told you, they didn't give us a tour, but just getting um,
The
that
spirit.
experience,
The
that
spirit.
HBCU experience of being at a game and seeing the love, I said I had to come,
Yeah.
and yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, man. And I want you to know that you have definitely taken his mantle on, and you represent the Morehouse spirit incredibly out in the world. And it was great that we got to connect on
Yes.
campus and do some good. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, that experience was amazing because um, you were dating a friend of mine at the time who I grew up with in Hempstead, and she was just like, "You got to meet my boyfriend." I was like, "All right, cool." And I'll never forget, we were at, I think it was at Clark. We were sitting in one of their common areas, and it was you, me, and
Her.
attorney. Well, now he's attorney, super attorney Burby Powers. We
Yes,
spoke
yes,
for like 3 hours. We just talked,
yes, yes,
just
yes,
talking about so many different things. And I was like, yeah. And I told her, I was like, yeah, this guy, yeah, he's a cool guy. And then we didn't see each other again until you and I bumped into each other at the bursar office right there at the statue of Dr. Martin Luther King. And you said, hey, I hear you, it was like, good to see you. It was good to see you. It was like, hey, I hear you looking to be an educator. I got a school in Chicago that's looking for black men. Would you be interested? And I said, yeah. And the rest is history at that point because
and
that call from Bernicia Pugh, God rest her soul, and I moved to Chicago and started my life.
you've been a game changer from that time as a student at Morehouse College, just packing up your life straight out of Morehouse with a fresh degree and caring about this issue from that day to this day and what you've done with it. It's why we're here today.
Well,
So
well, well. That
amazing.
issue that you brought up in the preamble in your talk,
Yeah.
specific to the zero tolerance, I was not really aware. I just knew that it was wrong as a school
Mhm,
teacher to push
mhm,
out third graders and to arrest them, right? Suspend them, expel them. These are little babies.
mhm.
And so this is what I was witness to. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand the pipeline process that came later. But what I did know that pushing out young children into the streets, and I worked in Cabrini Green, which was
Yes.
a notorious area in Chicago at the time. It's not there anymore, but in the '90s when I came, it was known for violence. It was known for economic depression. But what was so incredible about that community, you knew it, right? Were the children and the parents and
Yes.
the love that they have for their children and the need for them to be able to get into the pipeline of education and then one day move into the middle class or even move into incredible wealth. It is possible and we know it is. And those parents had such um, trust in us as their teachers to get their children over into that space. And
Yes.
so being in that environment, working with Miss Primicia Pugh and you and the Men of Truth, all those great men and young ladies that we put
Yeah.
together this organization to
Shout out to all of you folks from Truth.
all of
Philip.
them. Miss Cright,
Mhm.
everybody, Miss Rule, Mr. Price,
Yeah.
just everyone that just put their hand to the plow, believed in your vision.
My mom, Janice Ross, was
Yes,
a
yes. Give Miss Ross, hey Miss Ross.
mhm.
Um, put their hand to the plow and believed in your vision, believed in our vision for those young people. And then we began to work very diligently to give them other things, which
Yeah.
were the weekends, the Spirit Week, the weekends that or the week at Morehouse College. I
Yeah.
was the first time,
Yeah.
never got on an airplane, and
Yeah.
we were able to get them that opportunity to fly on an airplane, learn about aeronautics, and get into an
Spend the weekend
environment
on the campus at Morehouse College with
in a whole
mentors.
week.
We were intentional about building on Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu's work that looked at his book Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, where he was talking about how if we were not intervening with kids, particularly those that were in inner cities, um, if we weren't intervening with them at the third, fourth, fifth, sixth levels, they were numbering the beds in prisons
Yes.
for them based on their success or failure rate. And so let's back up a little bit and talk about how you have developed a method out of this great background of yours, coming from Morehouse, coming from your activist work and developing your own approach. Let's talk about aspirational justice and how does it challenge the way we think about discipline and accountability today with students, and how is it game changing?
Well, we got to back up even further to the philosophy that aspirational justice came out of and was inspired by, and that's restorative justice. which a
Yes.
quick definition of that is justice that heals. Uh, this is a philosophy that grew out of the need to deal with the myriad of issues that were going on between schools and the criminal justice system as we were seeing the entrenchment of the school to prison pipeline in our schools, in our public schools. Little did I know, Rev Kev, it was all over the nation. But at the time, we were only focusing in on Chicago. And so I did my teaching stint. And then from there, I moved out of teaching and moved into community organizing with a group called the Community Justice Youth Institute, headed by two very dear friends of mine, Cheryl Graves and Ora Shue. Ora Shue passed away, and Cheryl's dealing with some health issues. But those two women are the godmothers of restorative justice here in Chicago. And they took me in, taught me everything I knew. I got trained in the work of restorative justice. And then Rev Kev, I was able to go back into the schools and work at Christian Finger High School under the leadership of Principal Liz Dozier. And then from there, we developed these processes that focused in on culture and climate in schools. And we began to see great shifts and changes in children's behavior because we cared about them. We showed them we cared about them, and we actually put in practices and processes that actually meted their needs. Zero tolerance was a philosophy that looks at children's behavior being something that should be a deterrent. And the way that we deter their behavior is by using these draconian practices of suspension, expulsion, arrest. And when you think about a high school student being suspended 10 days out of school, they failed that semester. They've lost their way. And they eventually end up getting caught up in the criminal justice system because they're children, young people, and they make mistakes. And so the criminal justice system became a holding space. And as statistics show, a child that's touched by the juvenile justice system has a 1 in 3 chance of then moving into the Department of Corrections. And so this was a nefarious and very racist process. The only children, or the children that were mostly targeted by zero tolerance, were those that were African American, Latina X, and this is by data that we acquired. Those that were in the LGBTQ plus space, and those that had 504 plans or IEPs. So these were the students who were the most susceptible to being pushed out of school. And so, with the help of the team at Christian Finger High School, with the help of the community that backed me up, the Community Justice for Youth Institute and others, we were able to institute a culture and climate that was suitable for the young people to be successful and to move forward.
And
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 then
and
I got laid off.
well, but before you got laid off, the nation and the world got to see your work on CNN, with your principal and how you were impacting lives. And what I want to commend you for is that you were doing it in some of the toughest schools in the city of Chicago on the South Side. This is not far from where I grew up. So I know the neighborhood, I know the school, and,
Yes.
and I knew. So when I'm sitting at home, like randomly watching CNN for the day, and I'm, maybe having some snack, and I see you pop up on the screen, you know, at Fenger High School, and you all are doing circle practices with students and having them to do check-ins and really become mindful and bringing mindfulness practices and finding new ways to hold people accountable and sharing this method as they were sharing you about you as a CNN hero. That was really cool about what you all were up to. It was so moving and inspiring to me that I just had to find a way to tell more and help more people to learn not only what you're doing, but why it's so important. And then this whole business of, and I want you to talk a little bit more about, when we talk about structural racism,
Yeah.
the pipeline to prison, when you have in the United States of America prisons that are for profit,
Yes.
it really shows why mass incarceration
Hmm. Money.
is
Capitalism.
essential.
Yes.
Yeah, say more about that.
Yes. When we found out the racist and nefarious practices targeting our children, we had to do something about it. And nobody wants to be on the side of that I'm racist, right? Be called a racist. Nobody want to be side, but the data was clear that you were targeting African Americans, you were targeting Latinx, you were targeting Black and Brown children, Rev Kev, children, young
Yeah.
people whose brains weren't even developed yet. You were arresting their development before they even had a chance at life, you
Yeah.
know. And we
Mhm.
know what was said by our dear brother K. Dot. The game was rigged against these children,
Mhm.
rigged
Mhm.
against them.
Mhm.
It brings me almost to tears when I think about those meetings and hearing how they talked about our children. And we as a community, as voters, as civically minded people, said this needs to be torn down. This needs to be dismantled.
Yes.
And the way that we focus on dismantling it was using restorative justice practices, using peace circles, which incorporated indigenous practices of bringing whole groups together to talk, to commune, to build relationships, to get acquainted, and finally to build a plan toward community building. We
Yeah.
began to train the children, the young people, to actually hold these spaces in my office with me there to support them and give them the opportunity to see how this can be something that can be transferred into the work that you're doing in the communities to be a peace builder yourself so that you don't have to wait till something happened for us to respond to it and to react to it. I was tired of that. I was tired of reacting to everything. I said, why don't we be proactive and build these practices so that we can tell the police that we don't need you for this particular situation. Our
Right.
children and our adults can handle this.
Yeah.
It can be this can be mitigated. This can be taken care of. And then we started training police on these tactics, and they in turn were bringing these practices into their work. Whether they were sitting in circle or whether they were actually using some of the actual work verbiage that we were teaching them. We saw this as a holistic approach, RevCab. We weren't just looking at just the community. We knew that the business leaders needed to know about this. We knew that the politicians needed to know about this. We knew that the pastors needed to know about this, and we just saturated the community. And I'm grateful and thankful for the media. Oh my goodness,
That
that was
helped.
able to put the message out, get the word out that Christian Finger High School has shifted and changed their approach. And when that word came out, and that we were given that wide platform, then we saw that this was not just something that was going on in Chicago, right? This was not just something going on in your community of Rosen that nurtured you and grew you up to who you are today, but this was going on nationally, all over the United States. And so that's how I was chosen to go to the White House and speak to uh, school districts all across the world because, the United States has places in Guam, they have places in the Samoas, they have places in Hawaii. And so these are people that are part of America, but they're all over the world. And they too had zero tolerance issues that were going on in their schools with their indigenous communities or their Black and Brown communities. So we just have to put a stop to this. We have to put a stop to this behavior. We have to put in politicians and policies that are going to be restorative as opposed to punitive. We have
Yeah.
to teach our community these practices because I'm tired of hearing gunshots and people getting shot and killed in my city. And this is my city of Chicago where I'm based.
Yes.
And I love and I'm going to hold on to the city as long as they'll hold on to me. It's
Hey,
cold today too,
he
but I'm
needs you there.
holding,
He needs you there on the ground.
I'm holding on to Chicago. But it hurts me every day to look at the news and see
Yeah.
what's going on. And it's time out for us to just kick this down the road, kick this to
Yeah.
another administration or kick this to another generation. We are the game changers now.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
have to now go forth and teach our children. And that's been my focus. That's been my mission. And it's been my pleasure to do it with you and do it with so many others all across the United States and the world.
You wrote a book that is your particular take on restorative justice, a method called aspirational justice.
Yes.
Talk so now that we have a foundation and an understanding that, restorative justice is about, you know, bringing indigenous practices and humanizing the situation, the individuals involved. They're not widgets to be fed into a pipeline in order to uh, create more profits for these privatized prisons, but that we are talking about human lives, and we want a developmental approach that can incorporate the entire community. So we got this foundation, but you came up with your own take on it.
Yeah.
Say say more about your important work, and it was great having you talk about it at Harvard as well.
And again, thank you for having me come and speak with the great men and women there, the great Harvard University. What a beautiful time it was to be at the Divinity School with you. What an honor. And so I
Yeah,
thank you for that.
yeah.
Um,
Say more about it.
Aspirational justice came out of a question, Rev Kev, and the question was, what are we restoring our children to?
Mm,
We do all this great work of circles and restorative justice, and it's great. We're getting these children and we're getting these adults to really buy into this great thing. But then when they go out the school doors, what are we restoring them to? And so I began to look at our community, look at our nation, look at our world, and I began to think very deeply about that question that was asked of me by an administrator at Syracuse, New York. And then George Floyd happened, and we were locked down due to COVID. So we had the double pandemic of racial injustice and COVID. And here in this very office, with tears in my eyes, I began to use my pen, as Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III told us when we had the uprising during Rodney King. Moss, man, or not violent, we don't riot. We use our pens, we use our minds to make change. I was inspired by that then, and so I began to put my pen to the paper and began to write down what I felt was a construct. What I knew that our nation needed was a construct to begin to bring healing and reconciliation once and for all for the racial injustices that we've been suffering. And so I developed Aspirational Justice and wrote the book, Aspirational Justice, A Pathway Toward Healing and Reconciliation. And the focus was to begin to heal and begin to move away from using these punitive measures toward African Americans. And I would dare say toward other groups as well, because it's a construct. So there's no color to the construct,
yes.
but it's a bigger construct that looks at truth telling, the symbolic, the institutional, and the tangible.
Hmm.
And these four aspects are all geared toward bringing about healing and reconciliation and racial atonement once and for all. Why do I think that it's important for us to do that? Because our nation is so divided. We watched the Super Bowl. We watched the event. We watched all the things that are going on. We watched the second inauguration of Donald Trump. We're seeing all of these things, and we're wondering what is going to happen to our nation. What is going to happen to our world? And I feel that the root cause goes all the way back to our, and I mean America's birth defect, and that's slavery.
Yes.
And I feel that our nation has never truly healed from the vestiges of slavery. It's only evolved from slavery to the nadir, the dark time after Abraham Lincoln was killed and Andrew Johnson became president, and um, the taking back of the 40 acres and a mule, and the lynchings and all of the things that we had to suffer, segregation and all the things that we had to suffer. And then the civil rights movement came
Right.
about to begin to move our nation away. We had great heroes, one of them being Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, but there were many heroes,
Mhm.
many game changers that popped up and began to make change for our nation that you and I could live in. But we still have a lot of work to do. And I feel that aspirational justice as an outgrowth from restorative justice, it's like gumbo. It takes many different pieces from sociology, from politics, from history, from religion. It takes so many different things. It's like jazz, right? It's like hip
Mhm.
hop out of jazz. It's like, but the root comes from restorative justice, and the root comes from atonement.
So let's talk a little bit about atonement because this is a pretty radical concept for some, but it seems like a sensible next step for people who look like you and me. And when we're thinking about making repair for the histories that have been oppressive and violent and destructive to our communities, how do we bring people along to imagine what a reparative racial reckoning and healing in the United States of America can look like in the context of Trumpomania, like happening right now. So
Yes, yes.
how do you bring us that vision for repair?
Well, it has to come from all walks of life, and people have to see a vested interest in terms of themselves that this is the right thing that America needs to do. I've
Oh,
lived a long time, 50 plus years, and I've seen so much in these 50 years. And the one thing that I have incredible hope in is in the American people.
all right, so let's look at that for a minute, Rob, because the American people, one way or the other, delivered us this current administration. The American people, um, for some reason or other, has now moved to abolish diversity, equity, inclusion programs
Yep.
across the country, which we thought was a step toward um, restorative justice and a step toward repair. Companies like Target, and Walmart, you know, deciding to renege on their promises. So, how can you have such faith? How do you hang your hat on that comment about I have faith in the American people? Tell us, because I'm hearing some of the critics go, "Come on, this is Pollyannish. This is
Yeah,
aspirational." You know what I'm saying?
absolutely. And the reason why is because I'm a student of history. I was taught by some great professors at Morehouse College,
Mhm.
and I've read many books, and I've seen the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And we as a people, the American people, have the capacity to do great things. But in order for us to get those great things to happen, we're going to need political will, we're going to need organizing, we're going to need education, we're going to need a lot of boots on the ground and souls to the polls. So, aspirational justice is the construct that gives people an idea of what policies should be put in place and what policies should just die a natural death.
So
As
let's
a
say
professor at
some
Loyola University, I
so
have the opportunity to teach the next generation of teachers. And one of the parts, one of the areas that they have to learn is aspirational justice. And the reason why is because institutions like Loyola University believe in anti-racism, believe that individuals who are going to be before our students and before in our community should have this knowledge and information because we live in a diverse society. Yes, we have Trumpomania. Yes, we have MAGA, but that doesn't stop the work that's still going on. That doesn't stop
yeah.
you from doing what you're doing on your podcast or me doing what I'm doing in restorative justice. It just makes it a little more difficult because people mindset has shifted to a more center right, a more conservative approach. And there's a lot of fear out here because we don't know. There's a lot of ignorance out here because we don't know. And the certain powers want that to happen. But as long as I
All
have
right.
breath in my body, as long as you're doing this podcast, the knowledge and information is going to get out here. And we just have to keep sharing it, writing about it, speaking about it. And more importantly, we got to keep loving each other, ensuring that love conquers hate.
So to get us there, you mentioned there are certain types of policies that need to die a natural death and
Yes.
certain kinds of policies that need to be created. Can you give us specific examples of the kind of policies that need to die a natural death and the kind of policies that, would be considered aspirational?
So, one of the main policies that just need to go away is zero tolerance.
Mm,
It needs to die. And the only way that it can die a natural death is by policies like policies here in Illinois, like SB 100, that focus solely on holding school districts accountable by their data on how they are addressing students' behavior. And Dr. King talked about it. He said, good legislation, I'm paraphrasing. We can't make people do good, but good legislation can ensure and force that they do the right thing. And so that's why we have to make sure that we are having these conversations with our political leaders, that we are supporting um, good policies. A policy that needs to be brought aspirationally is the policy of reparations. I think it's HR 40, I believe, that's being put back on the table. Now, I don't think it has a chance of getting out of committee, but Sheila Jackson Lee, God
Yeah.
rest her soul, um, reached out to some of the uh, group called the what do they call the quad or the a squad. I'm sorry,
Mhm,
one of the congresswomen
mhm,
that's
mhm,
part of the
mhm,
squad, and she
mhm.
is taking it on as her work to bring finally a working group to really look at and analyze and figure out what policies need to be put forth on the national level that would help to repair, not just a check, right? This is a comprehensive focus
Yeah,
looking at what things need to happen and what things need to occur in the African American community that have a continuing connection to the vestiges of slavery, Jim Crow, and a variety of different practices, the school to prison pipeline, mass incarceration. And so that's a policy that we want to ensure comes about, but not at the expense of poor whites or Latinos or any other group, because most of those groups benefited from the civil rights movement. A lot of people don't talk about
yes,
that, but
yes,
Asians,
yes.
I saw a podcast where two Asians would talk about how the reason why they're there and the 2 million plus Asians are there is because of the civil rights movement, because of the policies that Lyndon Baines Johnson put in place with the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. So aspirational justice is about continuing the conversation that started when we showed up here in 1619.
Mhm,
The conversation of how do we ensure that this nation is truly a nation that doesn't judge us by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. That this is a nation that focuses solely on individuals being able to create opportunities that will make the world a better place. And more importantly, how we can create spaces where young people can grow and can aspire to be the best that they can be. That's what I have hope in. And without that hope, I would probably not be on your podcast. I'd be somewhere doing other things. But I stay in this fight because I believe so. And the reason why I believe is because of those people in Roseland, Kevin.
mhm.
Seeing those
Yes,
parents talking
yes,
to those young people,
yes,
looking in their eyes and seeing, and they had the same eyes that those parents in Cabrini had.
yes,
Same look in their eyes, determination that we got to get this right, and we
yes.
can't do this alone. And so, aspirational justice is really about continuing the conversation, in spite of the fact that we move center right. So
Mhm,
what?
mhm.
So what? We still have an opportunity to do some great things.
And I
Um,
totally agree with you on that. Part of the work that I'm continuing through film, working on
yes,
film that's going to explore, some creative ways that descendants of the enslaved and descendants of slave holders
yeah,
um, have come up to make repair. I ain't gonna give it all to you right now.
okay,
I'm also on a committee at Harvard University that is responding to Harvard's report on Harvard and their legacy of slavery. And so we've established a Truth and Reconciliation
yes,
Oratory Commission where these conversations, we're not letting them die. And, I didn't know that when I came out to Cambridge and went to Harvard that that's the first thing that they were gonna bring up. So it
right,
gave me a sense of, you know, hope as well. And yet, you know, the progress is slow because when we're
yes,
talking about dismantling, even when institutions admit it, right?
that's right,
Something in the molecular structure of these institutions is inherently oriented toward protecting the worst of their histories. You want to say more about how we get at moving institutions uh, forward in reckoning within themselves, because I think that's a thing that I'm seeing a lot of, that there's this systems inherently go back, recoil, and protect themselves. They step out there and then they jump back, like we saw, George Floyd, that big moment where all of humanity kind of woke up and saw, hey, we need to do something.
Yes.
And then there's that moment where they the they look at the profit margin or the current political climate and recoil. How do we move institutions forward?
I think that's just human nature. I think that's just people and their
Mhm,
emotions. And I think a lot of it is based in shame, based in guilt.
mhm,
I know I've seen that when we've done circles with
mhm.
groups, and we've seen their protection sometimes of the offender because that's their family member at the
Yeah,
expense of the person that they harm.
yeah, yeah.
Happens so much. I see it so much in my community, so much in my family, my own family, and we also see it in the world. And so, as Harvard is doing it, I'm so proud of Harvard. I'm so proud of you, Kevin, that you're a part of this committee. It has to be a top down, bottom up approach to shifting institutions. And we have to know that this shift is going to take some time. And so, it's important that we have the young people with their energy and their vigor and their hopefulness to be a part of that process. The top down is going to be from the president that the trustees select, of course.
Mhm.
And so it's making sure that the trustees are aware of anti-racism or aware of aspirational justice or are a part of the work that's going on where it's, putting a mirror to our institution and then in selecting a leader that
Mhm.
reflects that out, not only within their community, but also out into the world. So that's the top down. And then the bottom up is going to be the faculty, you, the children, I mean, excuse me, the young adults that are a part of Harvard or a part of any institution, continuing to push the the administration and the leaders at the top to aspirational justice. Because if you don't push them, power concedes nothing without the man. It never has and never will. Frederick Douglass. So the push has to continue,
Mhm.
but it has to be done in care. It has to be done with a level of understanding human nature. That
Mhm.
there's going to be
Mhm.
retractions, and Donald Trump is a reflection of that. Is a reflection of a retraction. That the
Mhm.
nation is afraid that in 2030, the Europeans, the whites that are here, will be the minority.
Mhm.
This country will be predominantly African, well, Latino and African American, and of course Asian, and
Mhm.
they will be a minority, and that's fear. That's there's people are afraid. What
Mhm.
does that mean, right?
Mhm.
And nobody's talking about this. They're just reacting to it. And they're like, well, let's put our guy in, and this guy can stop some of these things from happening because we're afraid. And we know that people use fear as a tactic to control.
Yeah.
And we have to move into faith. We have to move into possibilities. We have to move into aspiration. We have to move into restoration.
Well, let's move into that in this
We have to
conversation,
do that.
related to what you're doing. So you're leading a 3-year initiative in the Hempstead Unified Public Schools, training teachers and students and parents. Why is it critical to then involve the entire communities in this work? You're talking about pushing from the bottom up instead of just
Yes.
focusing on schools. And proud of what you're doing there. Say more about that and
Well, first of all, I have to say that it's full circle for me to be back in the very community that helped to raise me and nurture me in the 80s. That's number one. Number two, that community has changed. It's not predominantly African American or Afro Caribbean, but it's mostly Latinos that are there in that district.
Mm,
And this grant called RevCos is really focused in on three specific areas. One, teaching the students and the staff and the faculty social emotional learning, which incorporates restorative justice. Two, training the parents so that they in turn can use these practices to support reduction in violence and reduction in students' lack of achievement. And three, and I'll tell you this is the most important, Kevin, to institutionalize and operationalize these practices. So after this grant is over, Hempstead becomes a restorative school district. That by far is the work and why I'm there for a number of years. And we'll continue to work with that school district to ensure that number three happens. Because what often happens, Kevin, with grants, the grants run out,
Yeah.
the leader leaves, or the consultant leaves, or the vendor leaves, and here comes the retraction, Kevin. Here it comes. Here comes the retraction. We're going back to the way that we are comfortable with, which may not be good for children and parents. So
Mhm.
how do I operationalize and concretize and to institutionalize this practice is by uh, training heavily leaders, members of the community, parents, school board members, young people, just train, train, train so that no matter where you go in that community, they're talking restorative justice. They're living restorative justice. They're putting policies in place in their student code of conduct that's focused in on restorative justice and social emotional learning because they know one is evidence based and it works, but two is the right thing to do for children and parents because zero tolerance doesn't work. The statistics show that all the suspension, expulsion, arrest that we've done has not raised test scores. Remember, that's the bread and butter for schools and communities is looking at the data to see if if this is helping young people learn how to read, write, and do arithmetic. Is that's what keeps school viable and keep them off of their list that where they can be taken over by the state. And so zero tolerance doesn't work. It doesn't focus on that. So we have to now focus in on building these social skills, these soft skills within our young people, and doing it with care, doing it with expertise, but more importantly, doing it with a foresight of the future
Mhm.
because AI is here
Mm.
and AI is about to do some very dramatic changes in our society. But what will never change is human beings and how human beings are supposed to approach ideas, approach situations, approach each other. And so my question is in the 21st century, how do we want to be? Do we want to teach our children to be punitive, or do we want to teach our children to be restorative? Do we want to teach our children to be apathetic, or do we want to teach our children to be aspirational? What future we want to teach or we want to have determines how we treat our children, Rev Cab, and
All right, so
that's my work. That's my
let
work.
I can see it, and I'm so proud. I wanna just ask you one more question. It's about to wrap up here, but let me just ask, let's take it out of the classroom now, we wanna take it home. We wanna work it with everyday people, parents
Yes.
and community. How can they put these practices to work, So let's pull it way down from this big theoretical, and talking about developmental versus punitive, like, do we still spank? Do we
Mm,
what are we doing?
good question.
What are we doing at home?
Good question. That is an excellent question. What are we doing at home? How can we take what we're learning in the classroom and bringing it into the bedroom, bringing it into the dining room, bringing it into the uh, the community?
Yeah.
And that part is going to definitely have support from the faith-based community as well. And so, using the faith-based communities to help teach this, preach this, but more importantly, model it is going to be crucial. But even more so, we're going to need for our adults and our parents to buy into it. And in order to make any type of change, you're going to need buy-in. But the way to get the buy-in is we have to show up. We have to show up and model it. That's what I had to do in Roseland because they wanted us to be punitive. So I remember some of the parents in Cabrini would give me permission to whoop the children. And I just like you can whoop the kid.
Listen, let's no, wait. Let's back keeping it 1,000, keeping it
Come
1,000
on.
all the way through high school in Chicago Public School.
Yes.
Corporal punishment was still a thing. You know,
Yes.
I mean, and of course, the communities that we grew up in that Roseland community, anybody who was a part of the community had the right to correct. And I'm not advocating for violence, but
Yes.
how do we have it play out in community where communities members are not afraid, right?
Yes.
Because nowadays, if a parent or a neighbor reached out and talked to a parent, a kid about some of their wayward behavior, it might end in a violent transaction. So what do we do, you know, uh,
Four
to
things.
yeah.
Four things I want to leave with your guest.
Mhm,
And this is how we build relationships.
mhm,
First, we have to get acquainted with the people in our neighborhood, our children. We have to know their names. They're
Mhm.
not little girl, little boy, or that person over there wearing the red hat, but we get to know their names. That's the gateway to get to know someone. Number two, we have to build trust. And the way we build trust is by telling our story, telling our journey, both sides, telling how we got here, and why we're here and what our purpose is. Number three, we have to make a decision through consensus. We have to build a way in which how we want to operate. So, you know, I know you're young, so I know you like loud music, but I'm older, and that kind of harm me. Can we, can we meet it in the middle? And of course, if
Mhm.
I built that relationship, I built that trust, I'll be willing to. But if I haven't, then it'll just be no, right? And then here comes the conflict. And then finally, we have to create a plan. We have to build community. And those four aspects is what I've used, even in my own household with my own four children who I've never spanked, not once.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
have two adult children, two graduated from college, and I have two adult twins, and they're about to graduate or they're moving through matriculating through college. But I've never one time, and they're all doing great. So I had to model it for myself
Mhm.
in order to show my counterparts, my age group, that yeah, we came up in that environment of being using spankings, right? We came up
Mhm.
with that,
Mhm.
but I never liked it when it was happening to me, and I felt like, let me see if I can use another technique, another way. And that technique that was given to me, Rev Kev, was restorative justice.
Mhm.
And I raised my children in that, and they are thriving. So it is possible. That doesn't mean we didn't punish. That didn't mean we didn't use discipline that taught, of course.
Mhm. Mhm.
That didn't mean we didn't raise our voice. That didn't mean we didn't get angry because we're
Mhm.
we're, we're human.
Mhm.
But it does mean that when we did it with a basis of love.
Mm. Boy, that's a whole show unto itself, like, restorative justice for parents,
Yes.
aspirational justice for parents. That's another book. And speaking of it, aspirational justice for parents of teenagers, okay? And I want the first copy off the press, right? I'm working
Yes,
with
sir.
that.
It's possible. It's possible. It's not easy, but it's possible.
Really, because what I feel as one, this generation has a way of doing things that are sort of unimaginable in terms of the ways in which they engage with adults and elders and all of that. And we are a non-spanking parents also, even in
Mhm.
our kind of uncoupled status. We still have chosen not to spank the children.
Right.
But I do feel the ancestors wanting to break through, say, "You're not gonna do it, I got it."
Well, the one thing that I know that is tried and true is building relationships with your children.
Yeah.
And what they had that we didn't have was information at their fingertips.
Mm,
We only had a limited amount of information that was there
mm,
for us. These children have the world. They're global.
mm,
And so they're a little more sophisticated and a little more they're different. They're different than us coming up.
mhm,
But what I know to be true and that will always be is that children want to be taught, children want to be loved, and children need boundaries and want boundaries because that also shows love. And
mm.
sometimes they're upset about it and they, stamp her off or whatever. Yeah, go ahead because you're emotional, you have emotions, fine. But at the end of the day, we're gonna circle back and we're gonna have a conversation based on the four things that I talked about: getting
I love
acquainted, building trust, making a decision on how we should move forward, and finally, let's make a plan.
I'm gonna schedule an appointment with you to help me right now because I've got two teenage daughters and a son who's about to turn 13. And I
Yes.
really, I'm really that dad, and I'm trying to bridge the best of my culture, and
Yes.
what I understand to be culturally relevant and important because I know the world that I am sending these
Yes.
um, African, Puerto Rican kids out into,
Yeah.
right? Know that world. So there's the protective side, but there's the side that I struggle with, particularly on the teen side of really connecting relationally and trying to relate to where they are. So I'm going to book some time with you because
Absolutely.
I want to put this to practice myself. I want to ask you one question as we close this time, and it's been really good. It's
Thank
been
you.
really good, and I might put you on the spot for something before we in. How do you stay motivated? What do you turn to keep yourself committed when it's hard and it's tough and there are recoils and setbacks? How do you stay motivated personally?
My faith, my family, and my understanding that I only have a finite amount of time left on this planet. And so that motivates me every day when I get up to do my very best and to not let the world and all of its myriad of issues overwhelm me to the point where mentally I'm I'm stunted. And so I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of writing. I love to listen to music. I love to play with my
Give
dog.
me a couple songs on your playlist, like your
Man,
Stay Pumped playlist. Just a
well, well,
couple pieces.
well, right now I'm listening to a lot of Blue Note jazz, a lot of Coltrane, a
Mhm.
lot of Miles,
Mhm.
definitely '90s hip hop. So Pete Rock, CL Smooth.
Mhm. Mhm.
Listen to a few other artists of that ilk, Nas. Um, and I try to also make sure that I stay in the disciplines of prayer, I
Mhm.
exercise, uh, take care of my comorbidities as they've propped up on me. I have a pressure, diabetes. I have an incredible medical team that keeps make sure that I'm fine and that I'm keeping everything and managing everything correctly. And so I'm grateful for that. But my wife, Chandra, has been just such a godsend and such a blessing to me. And my children, have been such a blessing to me. But definitely having some me time, some play time, to do things that I like to do in terms of play, go to the comic book store and just get lost in the comic books, or
Uh,
go to the library and read different books and stuff, or hang out with my Mason brothers uh, here in Oak Lawn
yeah.
that I've moving up through the process, and they're great men. All these things to be able to keep my saw sharpened, and
Wow.
also doing fun stuff like this with people that I care about and love, like you.
Yeah, man.
Also keeps me mentally.
That's good. So the self-care is so important. I love that we've got a nice little gumbo of things that you can use, including that soundtrack, and you're surrounding yourself with your people and hobbies and all of those things because you know we didn't get an opportunity to kind of uh, deconstruct the humanity of a Dr. King. Like, how did he get down when he wasn't, at the press conference or at the march? And so I'm happy that you're, uh, here to bring some of that to our attention. Um, we're going to close our program, and I'm just going to hum a little bit of this or sing a little bit of this as we close in honor of our great uh, undergraduate alma mater.
There you go.
We be so
Be
find each
so together,
on the other,
learn
if two ties more brother.
brotherly.
Holy
Holy Spirit,
Spirit, Holy
Holy Spirit,
Spirit,
make
make
us
us
steadfast on this
steadfast
truth. To our
more
moral
house and
and her ideals,
ideals
and in
and
all
all
things
things that
we
we
do.
do. All right, brother. Tell folks how they can keep in touch with you, man.
My website, www.restorativestrategies.expert. You can also reach me through my other website, Aspirational Justice, www.aspirationaljustice.com. Um, Coming out with a book. I'm gonna be in a compilation called Restorative Justice Up Close, first person accounts of an approach that works, coming out next year with New Press. Um, and so I'm really excited, edited by a dear friend of mine, Miss Sally Wolf. And yeah, just reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram, Reverend Dr. Robert Spicer, I believe is my handle. And Facebook, of course, you can find me on Facebook, Robert Spicer.
Thank you so much, brother Robert, for being on the show, and we will make sure that people see those handles as well. It's been such one of the great joys of my life to follow your career. And I know that wherever you are, you're representing our alma mater well, you're representing our people well, and you are representing aspirational justice well. So proud. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And thank you all for tuning in to Meet the Game Changers. Justice isn't just about punishment, it's about healing, accountability, and creating systems that uplift rather than exclude. Keep learning, keep advocating, and keep being the game changer you were born to be. We'll see you next time.
This is Meet the Game Changers with Rev Kev, where we dive into the stories of people transforming our world one bold move at a time.